So I go in the kitchen. He comes, as I'm about to come out of the kitchen, he comes behind me and he greets me with a knife. He said, I'm prepared to kill both of us. He said, you're the only thing I have. If I lose you, I don't have nothing, da da da. So I'm just like, okay, but don't. I said, put the knife down. Like, what are you talking about? You're like, no, no, no. Like, I'm just trying to bring him back down. So now we're like in between the dining room table. So I'm like a barricade between us. And so he's just talking. Like I can't even remember what he was saying at this point. And uh so I'm just like, okay, well no, put the knife down, da da da. So he puts it down on the table. He was like, I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you. I said, well, we could talk, we could talk. What are you talking about? He was like, okay, I just want to talk to you. So so we doing like this standoff for like the next almost like 15 minutes. And just like him just talking, like just I'm like, okay, da da da, calm,
You're in the
trying to
kitchen
deep.
or
Yeah, we're in the like dining room area,
dining room?
right outside the kitchen. So then he was like, okay, I just need to talk to you, da da da. I said, okay, well, we could talk. And so he was like, well, I said, well, can I have my phone? And he was like, no.
Oh, he
So
had your
mind you,
phone.
he has my phone. And so he was like, okay, well, I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you. I said, okay, we could talk. He said, well, I need to smoke first. I need to smoke. So I said, okay. So I go in the kitchen and I'm like getting, if you know, getting the stuff. And so I come back out. Now he is um we're sitting down and I'm kind of like on the edge of the sofa, like next to him, just kind of still like feeling uncomfortable. He still didn't say anything. So I'm like, oh, you don't, I'm trying to divert the situation. You know, want to watch the halftime performance? It had
Yeah.
just started. So he unmutes the TV. And so just listening to that for a minute. So then he said, I'm gonna give you a chance to explain. And I said, explain what? And he was like, I'm just gonna give you a chance to tell me the truth. So I'm just looking at him like, tell you the truth about what? And he's just staring at me, just like with a blank stare. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Tell you the truth about what? I'm kind of like unconsciously kind of inching like away from him. And he was like, he said, I'm trying to be cool. I'm just trying to talk to you and you keep moving away. And I said, no, I'm not doing anything. He was like, you keep inching away from me, da da da. So then I think I kind of like finally move and I end up being in the corner by the entertainment system. And um, so then he stands over me and he was like, well, all I gotta do is headbutt you right now. And so I'm just like in a fetal position because I'm like, one of those moments when they be like, when you're scared, stuck, like
Mhm.
I couldn't
Mhm.
move. Like I
Mhm.
didn't know what to do, where to move. So he was like, I need you to run to the back in the room. And I said, no, I'm not gonna go to the back. Because mind you, when we got into stuff before, it was always a bed in the room to like separate us.
Right, like
Mind
a
you, my stuff,
blockade.
yeah, mind you, my majority of my bedroom furniture had just got moved out the day
Oh,
before. So
cause he.
that
Oh.
bedroom is empty. So and then if I go in the bedroom, I'm further away from the front door. So
Oh.
I'm like, I can't go into that bedroom. Because it's gonna be bad if I go in that bedroom. And so I end up running and I go back to where we just were by the dining room table. And he's still just talking. I don't have anything, da da da, just going through all this stuff. And then so I said, well, just let me leave. And he said, no, you're not leaving. So now I'm like thinking of like all these different scenarios. I'm like, okay, if I run, if I knock this down if I do this. Like, I'm just thinking, not even paying attention to what he's saying.
Like ways to
And
escape the situation.
yeah, so I'm like, so then that fight or flight response is kicking in. So now my mouth is very dry, like super dry. Like I couldn't even. I said, I need some water. He said, no, no. And so, because then I was saying, okay, well, if I get some water, maybe I throw it in his face and I kick him in the nuts. Like I'm like literally all this stuff is going through my mind. Like, how do I get away from him?
To survive.
And yeah, and so then um we're in the hallway now because he backs me up into the hallway. And he said, well, now he was talking, and then he kind of had a breakdown moment where he starts crying again. And so I'm just looking at him. And then so he was like, now I'm gonna test you. And he puts his hands around my neck and he starts choking me. So as he's choking me, he's trying to pull me into the room, into the bedroom. So I maneuver around and I end up back at the kitchen, the front of my kitchen. And no sooner than I got there, I didn't even say anything. I don't think he said anything. Then he punches me. And then I just remember falling to the ground and I saw blood drip on the floor.
He
And
punched
he
you
was
in
over
the
top.
face?
He was over top of me. And I remember screaming, just like help, help, help. And so then he was like, no, you need to be quiet. You need to be quiet. I'm gonna go to jail. You're gonna be quiet. No, somebody's gonna hear you. Da da da. So I'm just screaming, screaming, screaming. He's like just wrestling me. So I get up. I think he um came from off top of me. And I get up and I try to run to the door. And as I run into the door, he punches me again. And I just remember seeing black and white and I just fell to the ground. And he gets on top of me again and is choking me and I'm trying to maneuver, maneuver out of that. So by then now I'm hearing my neighbors telling him to stop, stop.
Oh.
And then
So the neighbors came?
yeah, my neighbors were outside of the door.
Oh.
So then when I tried to get to the front door, um I couldn't I couldn't see the lock because it was so much blood dripping down on my face, and I just tried to reach my hand up to try to grab the lock. And uh, I remember just crouching down by the door, and I was just knocking on the door so my neighbors could know that I was right there. He he said something to me before he left. I forgot what he said, and we were on the second floor. It wasn't um a big gap, just over the first and second floor, but it was still a jump. So he jumped out of the window, out of the back window, and ran. And then I finally got the door unlocked, and my neighbor was outside of it. They were just they always had people over, and mind you, it was Super Bowl Sunday, so they had people over there. So they was just like, oh my God. And then I just remember crawling out to their door and I was just like, I just need some water. So they got me some water and they got me a towel. And I was like, did y'all call the police? And they said, yeah, we called the ambulance. Da, da, da. So the ambulance came and I didn't realize because I had glasses on at the time. I didn't realize I couldn't see because my glasses were knocked off my face. And I had one sock on. It was February night. It was cold. I remember walking to the ambulance with one sock and have no coat on. And I got in the ambulance and, they strap you down. And I just was feeling really like claustrophobic. And I was just like, can you,
Yeah, I
loosen
mean,
these
it's the
straps? Yeah,
worst.
can you loosen these straps up? And it was like, okay, yeah, yeah. And so this is in the heart of the pandemic, so I had a mask on, so I couldn't see. I just remember opening my eyes a little bit, kind of looking to see where we were going, like in the hospital. I just remember seeing this hallway, and they had stopped and in the hallway, I guess trying to get me to a room. And so then some people came and talked to me and they were taking pictures. That was the police at the time. They came and took pictures. And I remember when I got in the room, I remember hearing somebody and they was like, dang, what happened to her? And I was just like, still, I don't know what my face looks like. I don't know what's going on. And so the police came and asked me questions and, told me that I need to follow up tomorrow, the next day to press charges, da, da, da. And so I was at the hospital for probably a little over 2 hours. Because I got stitches and I remember going to the bathroom and that's when I realized I was like, oh shoot, I don't have my glasses on, I can't see. And so they was like, are you okay to walk to the bathroom? And I was like, yeah. And mind you, I had to get a CT scan, so that made me even more claustrophobic because I had to go into this tunnel after all this just happened. I got a mask on my face, like it was horrible. Yeah, it was a horrible feeling. I went to the bathroom and I kind of peeked at myself a little bit, but I didn't really look at myself. And so like I got stitches and mind you, I still didn't have my phone because he had my phone after all this happened. And so I was like, okay, can I call? I need to call my mom. I'll call somebody, let them know I'm here. And at the time, I didn't know my mom's number because she had just got her phone number changed because he was constantly texting her and calling her and making threats towards her. So she was like, I'm changing my number. I don't got time for this. So I didn't have her number memorized at the time. So thankfully I knew my sister's number and she happened to be in town because she lives in LA. So she happened to be home at that time. And I just kept calling her and calling her and she finally answered. I said, you need to come pick me up from the hospital because I was assaulted. And she was like, okay, I'm going to go wake mom up. Da, da, da. And they were there probably the next almost probably an hour, I would say tops. And so I was released from the hospital and we went back to my apartment because I had to go get my car from the apartment. And so my mom and my stepfather went up to the apartment and I think my mom had took pictures and stuff while she was in there. And so we came back and we drove my car back home. And that was the end of that night. And when I got home and I tried to finally like lay down, I remember the first time I closed my eyes, I kind of like jumped up because it was like a flash of light in my eye and it scared me. And I was just like, whoa, what was that? And so I started experiencing like these little rolls of light in my eye. The next day when I had went outside and mind you, it was snowing too. So I was like, is that the snow that I'm seeing? Or I'm seeing like little specks or, dots or whatever. And I was like, I think that's my eye. And so I had to, I called, to get an eye appointment to see what was going on with my eye. And in layman's term, basically they were saying like the gel that cushions your eye was knocked loose. So that's what causes the roll of light in my eye and the little floaters, what they call it, like the lines and dots in my eye. So yeah, so that'll never go away. So you can't get that gel back in your eye. So the light in my eye is not as frequent as it was when it first happened. It was like every day, constantly. It would be like this light rolling in my eye. So now it's kind of like here and there, frequently. It still happens, but the floaters are definitely still in my eye. I still, see the little lines and floaters if I'm really focusing on something. Um, so that was the main injury that I'm still, I guess I would say, still dealing with to this day, and probably will always deal with after that. And I had to have a scar. You can see it a little bit. I have a scar on my eye, and end up getting 23 stitches underneath my eyebrow, under my eyelid, and one right here. So this side of my face was like completely swollen. I had a big knot right here that I still have, like a little knot right here on the side of my eyebrow from that. Um, but yeah, I had stitches, concussion, and just high anxiety now. um, and it just took me about, I would say just till a couple months ago, like when I got this new job, to me to get like a normal sleep pattern, because that year after that, I don't my sleep was horrible. Like, I couldn't sleep. I would get nervous at night. I still have those periodically. I get anxiety at night. Um, but yeah, I had horrible sleep afterwards. Like, I don't even the first like 3 weeks afterwards, I don't think I slept really at all. I thought about a lot about my handprint was on the front door in blood, like just a perfect handprint. And I think about that a lot, because I was like, that could have very well been, the last sign of me alive, and that image would be stuck with my mother or my family, that they would see that. And I never thought about dying in that moment. The only thing I could tell you I thought about was just like, I got to get to the other side of the door, and when I get to the other side of the door, I'm not going to come back. And it's when people are in life or death situations, it's hard. It's one of those feelings. It's just like, what does a person think about in that moment? And the only thing I could think about was just surviving, and just my family, and just like, what would they think? And I was just like, no, I'm not. It's not going to end right here for me. I'm just going to get to the other side of the door, and that's all I thought about.
Then when he like leapt out of the door, I mean window, you said it was a second floor or
Yeah, second.
floor?
Mm-hmm.
It's still a pretty big leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what happened?
So the next day, I went to the courthouse and pressed charges, and he has a warrant that is still active because they have not caught him.
And so this all transpired in 2020?
Yes.
This last situation.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just had a warrant out since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the police came and looked around the apartment, I think, for the next couple of days after that. But of course, he wasn't there. He knew
That would be
he knew
very
that they were looking for
foolish.
him. Yeah. So it was just like, yeah, they do their little bit they can, and that's not knocking police, but it's just like they want him to fall in their lap, and
in many cases,
I
that's
don't know how long that's gonna take.
Justice system definitely is.
Oh yeah,
clearly flawed.
and because he never got served, because like the day after, once I got to the court and everything, I got a temporary protective order and all that. But it's only going to be temporary for so long, because then he has to be served that he was served this paper to get a peace order. So they only grant you the temporary order for a couple of times. I think I had it for like a few months. Like, I had to renew it like a month, because they will wait to see if they would get he would get in the system,
That's so
and
strange.
yeah, and it was like, well, because he hasn't been served yet, and there's nothing really they could do about it, and they wouldn't grant it anymore. Like after a few times of me coming back to court, and they'd be like, okay, well, hopefully he just leaves you alone. That's what the judge told me.
They wouldn't just give you a permanent restraining
Yeah,
order
yeah,
like that.
of course. That will make a logical
Like,
sense, but
hello.
because he wasn't served with it, they wouldn't further grant it anymore. It was just only a temporary order.
Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I think there was enough evidence.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is
So
bizarre.
that was the judge's response. It's like, oh well, hopefully he just leaves you alone
That
and
is
you
the
won't have to worry about
most
this.
that is the
So I was like,
most
oh
insensitive comment. And
yeah,
you don't even hear that from like a friend that doesn't really care very much.
right,
Like this
yeah,
is a straight up judge.
right, yeah,
That's
yeah.
well,
And
that's
that's the messed up
great.
part about it. It's like, okay, well, hopefully he does leave me alone because like what's gonna happen next? Were you gonna wait till he doesn't? Like then
No,
it
of
may be too
course. I
late.
mean, sometimes it's like 5 years and then they appear out of nowhere. Like this has
Right, yeah.
happened many times to many
Right,
people
right.
because the individual hasn't been properly
Hmm.
brought to justice. Oi.
So that's kind of like where I'm at now is just kind
Yeah.
of like I don't, and I was telling my therapist this because I've had a therapist since a couple months after it happened. And I was just like, I don't really know what emotion I'm feeling, at this current moment. Like, do, am I satisfied with him just being out and he has a warrant, but not like satisfied to the point where, like, oh, he's not going to get justice, in a way. But I don't know, it's just a weird feeling. And then, or would I be more satisfied once he is, incarcerated? And so, that's kind of like where my head is at now, just still kind of like processing what emotion it is behind it because I don't know because it hasn't happened yet. I don't know what the emotion will be once they say, oh, okay, he's incarcerated. Like, would that bring me any more peace than what I have now? That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there is a level of at least kind of where he is versus that unknown feeling. That would be
Right,
perhaps a little bit alleviated.
right, yeah,
That feeling of, oh, anywhere this individual could
mm-hmm,
be definitely is
right,
I definitely understand that.
right,
Um, but like overall, it's like, oh,
mm-hmm,
what else will it bring? It's amazing that you're
yeah,
able to share this. Is this still fresh? Like it's just a couple years. I don't.
yeah.
For me, that's fresh because
Right, yeah, and it
it
doesn't
takes
seem like it. Like,
it
still kind
takes
of
a
just like a
lot. Yeah,
whirlwind for me.
yeah, because I mean, it takes time to even just come back into life.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
itself, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm out of it.
Right.
And then 2 years have passed. You're like, oh, whoa, that went by
Right.
very, very quickly. I was in,
Right. Yeah.
It's just, the process of healing and da da da. And
Hmm.
then now you're kind of a person again. If I may ask, what would you have told your younger self after all this has transpired?
I guess in a nutshell, that you're worthy of better love. You're worthy of respect. You're worthy of faithfulness. You're worthy of loyalty. That you don't deserve to be treated bad. Like, it's one thing to be loyal to somebody, but it's another thing to be stupidly and loyal to somebody. And in a way, I was stupidly loyal to somebody. And not necessarily stupid, but I was guilty of loving somebody very hard and wanting better for them more than they wanted for themselves. But in the same token, with me wanting better for somebody else, I had to see that I had to give myself better also.
And why do you think you were so loyal to this individual?
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's just I mean, I'm a very loyal person in general, like with friends and all that. But
Was there something about him that made you feel
in a way, I felt sorry for him. Like in a way, I didn't understand what it was like to come from a background where you didn't have your parents or you weren't as close with your mother
mm,
or you've been a victim of abuse yourself as a child. Like a lot of those things made me feel sorry for him, and even the times where I saw him wanting to do better and just couldn't get the pattern of just like being in a normal state of mind and not more of a of his own fight or flight state of mind that made me feel sorry, sorry for him.
mm. So in a way you were in the crossfire of him versus himself. So that loyalty in a way was you wanting to support him in him,
Right.
basically living from his soul or his true self
Mhm.
versus this persona that was created from like a background of abuse and
Right.
pain and suffering, and since you hadn't necessarily been through that,
Mhm.
you wanted to give him that opportunity to feel that
Right.
kind of way and support.
Yeah. And
So
kind of wanting to show him a different way of love that he didn't receive.
mm,
Yeah, I was just kind of like in that state of mind of just like, oh, well, I'm gonna show you better. Like, it's not everybody is like how you're used to, you know. So I was very stuck in that state of mind.
I mean, it makes sense though, like you care.
Right.
You want
Yeah.
that person to feel loved.
Yeah.
um and you almost give them excuses for the behavior in a
Oh,
way.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too many excuses, after a while. It was, you can love somebody, but don't be a fool, for love. And love can make you a fool,
Yeah.
unfortunately. That's all I can say I am guilty of is loving somebody.
All these songs, all these movies show us this
Yeah.
like undying, like, oh, through anything, through all
Right.
things, through everything. And the reality is that
Hmm.
we have to, that loyalty has to be there
Right.
on both sides, and that
Right.
character
Yeah.
has to be
Yeah.
there. The number one question is why didn't you leave, which you kind of answered there, because you cared. And also of course the up and down and the thing. Do you
Hmm.
feel like it was almost a sense of it became kind of an addiction or like a state of mind where you're just stuck, or
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely agree with both of those statements. It became definitely an addiction of just the constant back and forth. I got addicted to because that was the state of our relationship for so long, just the highs and lows, and you become addicted to that. Even when it's bad, it's just like, okay, well, in a way, you're still showing me some type of attention, or I'm kind of trying to feed into what you're giving me. So it's kind of like a constant tug of war, of the good and bad, good and bad, good and bad. And
what
you
were
don't you don't realize how, addicted that is,
right,
You
yeah,
don't realize that pattern that you easily get caught up into.
what were the things that were good that kind of got you a little caught up?
He he definitely had good qualities about him and was very charming, very caring. He would give you the shirt off his back, if you needed it. in certain instances. But then he just kind of just that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He just had that tendency to just go from one extreme to the next, like very caring, very loving, very supportive, very, very, very this, and then very disrespectful, very mean, very, abusive, like just complete ends of the spectrum.
You would see it almost coming up a little bit later on in the relationship, and you'd try to kind of put a little spray a little water on the fire
Right. Yeah.
figuratively.
Yeah.
And did you find that would work sometimes? Did it ever work?
Sometimes it would because, like I said, you're kind of appeasing to a childlike mindset. So I found myself constantly trying to appease him and buy him things, and just kind of trying to show like, oh, I'm, all the, I'm supportive. I do this for you. I got this, or like just trying to be on the A game of every little step of the way. But it's just like, yeah, I'm hitting all these markers for you, but you're down here in reality for me, and
Mhm.
that's the crazy part about it all. It's just like you're not giving me half of what I'm giving you.
Right. These terms been floating around for the past few years, love bombing and
Hmm.
gaslighting and la la. Do you feel like those narcissism, do you feel like those terminologies apply to this relationship?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because like I said, everything, um, situations where it wasn't geared towards him, or the attention wasn't on him per se, he would find some way to bring it back on him, or like make it about him in a way.
Mhm.
And just like I said, every good moment I had for him, I can guarantee I can think of a bad situation that happened that same day or the next day. It was always a constant runaround.
And you mentioned before as well that you could almost see him shift into
Mm-hmm.
something different, and you said you could see it in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of brings me back to your story about your friend who said, it was a monster that she envisioned in her
Mm-hmm.
dream. Did it feel like that? Did you see it almost as though it shifted into just a complete, like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? You feel that in real time kind of happening, like the flip, just in the
Uh,
moment?
yeah, in most situations, yeah.
But
Um,
sometimes it was just kind of unpredictable.
sometimes it was very yeah, sometimes it could be very unpredictable, but as it got, later down in the relationship, I would just kind of always probably predict that it would get to a certain point.
Right.
So I was always kind of like on edge and kind of like just waiting for it to get to that point.
What are your thoughts on victim blaming? Have you, in the process of sharing your story, come across victim blaming at all? Where it's like, well, you should have just
Um,
left, and you should have, where the focus
um,
isn't on them, the abuser.
right,
It's just like, you victim are
right.
wrong.
Not personally.
Okay.
Um, but I can guarantee it's probably, with just sharing my story in general on social media and stuff. I'm pretty sure some people in their head probably be like, oh well, you probably should have done this, or or I'm sharing the story for attention or something like that.
Right.
So I don't put it past people to be victim blaming, but that's just the state of the mind of a person that hasn't been in an abusive situation, because we often we can put ourselves in a lot of situations that we haven't been in and say we could have done this or we could have done that, but being in that situation is totally different from you just thinking of scenarios in your head. So I know I always heard certain situations, or actually a acquaintance of mine did a podcast on um she was talking to a survivor of domestic violence, and she was just like, "Oh, I couldn't imagine being hit, by a man. We would be in there fighting, like da da da." And so sometimes women kind of take this stance of like how they could take on a man, but I'm like,
I've
that's
heard that
not
too.
reality.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
really not reality. I don't care
No.
how big or bad you feel as a woman. Like when it comes to fighting a man, an enraged man that has
Mhm.
no inkling or compassion towards you, like he's
Or
fighting you as a
control
as
of their
another
body.
man. Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah, he's fighting you as another man. You're not touching him.
yeah, there's I
and
mean
and
there's
that's just not reality.
there's a lot of emotional components to it too. Like they're just
Right.
imagining themselves getting, hit by someone
Right.
randomly.
Right.
But it's like,
Yeah.
hello, you also have these emotional components of,
Right.
the traumas of maybe being hit before by this individual or whatever it
Mhm.
is, and the fear and the not knowing
Right.
what would happen next, and also
Right.
the love you might have for them.
Right.
All these components that you can't just like paint on a canvas.
Right.
They're painting with black and white when we got all these colors
Right. Yeah.
involved. And I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. People be
Yeah.
like, "Well, but I would have just smacked him back." But I'm like,
Right. Yeah. It's just like no, you wouldn't have,
I'm like,
and I guarantee you wouldn't have. You
plus,
know.
even if you would have or wouldn't have, it's not your story to even
Right. Yeah.
involve your opinion on that. Like that's
Yeah.
not
And
even.
I also touch base on that. When because it made me feel some type of way because I'm just like, first of all, you wouldn't have done that, and secondly, it's just like you don't know what you would have done in that situation. It's just like when I think back on that situation, it's just like it's a lot of stuff I wish I would have done, but I did what I had to do to survive. And like, in those type of situations, me not reacting impulsively is what kept me from getting injured either even more because that would have just infuriated him more if I would have reacted suddenly to what was going on.
Domestic violence is a very specific thing, I think, that even if you have experienced DV, there's so many different types, there's different levels of DV,
Right.
and you can't even put yourself in anyone's shoes,
Right.
even you don't know what they went through with that person, all the emotional
Exactly.
elements. So that to me is very bizarre, especially when other people who are supposed to be, on our side are
Right.
just like,
Yeah.
well, but if I was in your shoes.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't think we're talking about if you were in my shoes, to be
Right.
honest.
Exactly.
In a way, that is actually victim blaming because it's
Right.
just saying, like, well, if I was
Right.
there. So you haven't come across that so much with people you've told this to
No.
as much. That's good, though.
No, and I've gotten a lot of support with sharing my story. People I've known for years, people I've gone to school with. Even people that I knew from school, but I wasn't really, I didn't really know them that well. That still reached out to me and was like, praying for me and giving me supportive words like that. That meant a lot to me because it's like
Yeah.
I don't know why I always think people don't fuck with me, but it's
I
just
think
it's a weird thing.
uh,
Yeah.
are you more introverted as a person, or
Yeah, I am.
I think that
I
might be
am.
an introverted
Yeah.
element.
So March of 2021, my sister was in town still. All through the pandemic, we were giving, each other like quarantine birthdays or whatever. So they had gave me a quarantine birthday. My birthday's in April, but they gave me one a month early, while my sister was still in town. And they surprised me and gave me like a little birthday celebration. And it was just around that time where I was feeling, empowered in a way. So I was like, okay, yeah, I feel good. I feel good about myself right now and I kind of shared it on my Facebook, and I was just like, you couldn't break me, da da da. I kind of said something like along those lines, and
Mhm.
I said that I was a survivor of domestic violence, and that's when people kind of, because I hadn't said anything, prior to that, and that's when people started, commenting sharing their thoughts about it. So then, probably, I think in October of that year, Domestic Violence Month, that's when I shared a little more in depth of my story, because I was like, I just felt like like I said, I'm an introvert person to begin with. So I felt like most of my life I've been kind of like in the shadows, like kind of not really showing people my true self in a way. And then just being in that relationship also further pushed me down, into a way where I was hiding myself. I was tired of
Right.
hiding. So I was just like, that was my way of like talking to myself out loud and like not being ashamed of who I was now, outside of that.
Wow. And you did that in a post or a video
Yeah,
or
I did that in like a few stories. I would share, different facts about domestic violence, and then I would incorporate, different elements of my story of mainly the last assault that I endured. That's when I, posted pictures about it, and I was just very blunt and open about it because, like I said, I was tired of hiding from myself.
and what do you feel like you would say to someone that was in your situation and kind of the middle part of it? What would be kind of your
Uh,
perhaps advice?
I would say you're worth a lot more than what you're getting. It's not going to be easy leaving, but it's going to be worth it. You're still going to have hard moments, afterwards, but it doesn't compare to the turmoil that you're actually living in now. Because I can say, like, I still have hard moments, and that's what I always want to be authentic when I share my story, like not just share the bad parts or the good parts. Like, yeah, I can show you, good parts about it because I've done the work, and I've gone through different emotions to get me to a certain place. But I'm gonna always be transparent and show the good, bad, the ugly. I'm gonna show the after effect, the before, because I want people to understand that, because a lot of people don't show the ugly parts
No.
of the story. They show the, oh, look at me, I'm happy and I'm
Mm-hmm.
dating somebody new and I'm in love, da da da. Like, no, that's
Right.
not. It steps to get to that,
Mm-hmm.
and
There are definitely, and
that's
sometimes
what I.
that's when you skip a bunch of steps is when you get
Right,
there and you're
yeah,
suppressing half the time.
right. And that's what I want to be transparent and showing people. Like, I don't want to just show me, elevating and evolving after the fact. I want to show the beforehand, the ugly parts. The not pretty parts of domestic violence, because it's not pretty and it's not a beautiful thing to go through. It's very ugly. People live that every day. So unfortunately, a lot of people don't make it out of that situation. So if I can help somebody to open their eyes and realize that they have more to life than living with somebody that doesn't know how to love and appreciate them, then I want to do that.
Well, that's what I liked about you too, and why I wanted to talk to you because you had this air of you. It was a realness, and I'm very much about being real. And so many
Mm-hmm.
people I come across are just like, "Well, move on, let
Mm-hmm.
go, move
Right.
on, move on,
Right.
move on,
Let go.
let go,
Forget
find
about it.
someone new."
Right.
Find and I just heard that so often from so many people over not even telling them this full story over
Mm-hmm.
like the small stuff that they knew, and I was like, well, oh my goodness, when will we be allowed to talk about the real stuff? And if someone were to tell you, hey, move on, what would be your feelings around that?
Fuck you. I mean, because honestly, because this is like, uh, being in a traumatic situation, you can't just move on from that.
Thank you.
and that moving on, it transpires into other aspects of your life. So
Right. Exactly. I agree.
yeah.
Or the let go. Because
Right.
they're two different things. What if someone totally let
Oh
go?
yeah.
Same response.
Yeah. Because I told my mom this a couple weeks ago, because I was like, I don't express it a lot, but I told her I think I'm still grieving, that relationship in a way. And she said, yeah, because what you felt was genuine. You felt genuine love. So in a way, you are grieving that. You are grieving the loss of what you thought it was and what you thought it could be.
Right.
So,
It's a path.
that was reassuring to hear that, because you don't want to feel that, it's not grieving necessarily how, like, you miss that person or you miss the way they treated you. You miss what your brain told you it was for so long, and what you wanted it to be. That's what you miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, your mom seems like a very, very supportive and wise individual.
She is.
Was
I don't
she
know what I would do without her.
she was a very integral part of your healing process, I
Yeah,
assume.
definitely. Yeah.
What have you found has been very helpful for the process of healing? I pretty much believe it's a never-ending process, but
Oh yeah.
what has been kind of helpful for that process, do you find? Like
Definitely
therapy and
therapy. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely therapy. Started therapy probably a month after that altercation, and just and just being open and more honest with myself. More honest with just the people around me, trusting the people around me, because like I said, I've had friends and, of course, family that I've known my whole life, and a best friend that I know for from sixth grade. But it wasn't until after this situation happened that I really felt, and it wasn't like I didn't trust her. It was not trusting myself with certain information and not being open. So it's like now I'm at the point where I'm like, I can express my feelings and, trust people with my feelings, and learning how to be vulnerable, with other people.
you have to also trust yourself all over again because you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm in a way I was part of the decision of this,
Right.
coming together. There is that
Right.
that I'm
Right.
accountable for. And so it's like,
Right.
well, I have to question all my decisions now.
Right. Yeah. I don't want it to be put out there either. Like, of course he's a lot to blame for a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't be true to myself if I placed the blame solely on him, because it was something within that situation that I had to learn from also. Like, I
Right.
had to learn self-worth in that situation. I had to learn to defend myself and realize that I needed better for myself. With that situation, I've learned to grow and evolve, and I think I've learned and still learning the lessons that I needed to learn in order to not be in that situation
And I think it's a different type of quote unquote blame because it's more of a
again.
you're just taking responsibility for the fact that these are
Right,
things I need to change myself. It's not that you inflicted
right,
harm, which I think is a different type of blame. In
hmm
that case, it's like this person perpetuated and pushed the situation
right,
to be that is the predominant blame.
right, yeah,
But there's sometimes a misunderstanding between that kind of blame and then
hmm
because I mean, at least for me, I know I was blaming myself the entire
right.
relationship. There wasn't
Oh yeah,
wasn't a moment I
yeah,
wasn't blaming myself because
yeah,
it's always my
definitely.
fault. Like
Right,
that's kind
definitely.
of why you stay as well as wanting to
hmm
help. You also are like, oh, it's all my fault. So it's
Right.
that's why the victim blaming is like, well, I've been blaming. I've been
hmm
doing that, and
Right,
that's why I didn't leave in a lot of ways as well.
right.
So I think that, there's a difference between like that you're being, responsible for the
hmm
growth, but I
Right,
wouldn't say you were to blame in my
right,
personal
yeah.
opinion, because that's like
hmm
that means you inflicted something in
Right,
my
yeah,
opinion, the aggressor, which you were not.
right, right, true.
So You're so very strong, and I still just feel so one relatable as well, but also just humbled that you have chosen the route of realness, whereas a lot of folks have not.
Right.
And expressing and telling the story is very, very, very actually brave. I'm really appreciative for you. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, but you came out definitely with a lot of lessons learned. But
Hmm.
hopefully we don't have to go through these kinds of
Yes.
of
Like, I've
things in
learned my
order to be.
lesson. I don't need
Yeah.
another one.
It's like what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I'm like, I
Right.
don't need
Like,
that. I'm good.
yeah.
I don't need
Careful
things
with
to.
that statement.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need things to almost kill me for me to be
Right.
stronger. Can we I'll go
Right.
to the gym? Like, can we?
And I just want to say, by the way, because he don't let your abuser try to take how you grow outside of that situation, because they'll try to take ownership of how you evolve after the fact. Because I remember he told me this was probably like a couple weeks after this happened, because we were in communication a little bit after this happened. He was like, I made you stronger though, right? And I was just like, uh, no. And
Yeah.
like, don't, like, here you are trying to take your pain and trying to make it like you're a saving grace in a way. It's just like, no,
Oh
you
my
don't,
gosh.
you don't deserve that, power. You're like, what I'm doing after you and how I'm evolving after you has nothing to do with you making me strong or not. Like, I made myself strong because I chose to better myself outside of that situation.
Hmm.
So don't let somebody take power over your story.
That's really important. I've definitely heard that
Hmm.
one. Like, oh yeah, thank you so much. Oh,
Right. Yeah.
thanks. Ah,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for you,
It's like, right. It's
I'm so
like,
strong
huh?
now.
Yeah.
uh,
But that's their
yeah,
mentality.
yeah.
They want ownership, regardless of how they get it.
Control, right? To
Right.
a level, right? But what
Hmm.
do you feel there was anything that was specifically just beyond bizarre that he might have said to you during the relationship that was like, whoa, this is a very
Mm.
strange. I mean, what you just told me was pretty much that, uh,
Yeah.
but like, was there anything that
I
he'd said
mean,
that was like, are you okay up there?
yeah, it was just outrageous stuff. I can't even really pinpoint now, just
Yeah,
like, I don't know what's going on upstairs, but it's a mess.
maybe things that were said were a bit illogical. He said he
Yeah.
came across a little.
Hmm.
So, well, it's a mind game, right? Manipulation, all of
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
just
It's
a
definitely a mind game.
thing. As you said, there's a generational trauma there
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
that only he can, if he even decides to,
Right.
work on, which seems moot at this point.
Yeah. That
But
happened.
gosh, you're amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
for keeping everyone healthy and safe, and
You're
for keeping
welcome.
yourself
Thanks for
safe.
having me.
Your family sounds amazing. Your mom sounds like the best.
She is.
She raised an amazing daughter. So
Oh, thank you.
I'm really grateful for you, and I hope we can work on some projects because this stuff needs to be heard, and so many people are just hidden away like I would. I just lived on my couch for a minute there. So I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know if anyone's gonna listen. People
Right.
don't, do they
Yeah,
care to
but you don't
listen?
realize how many people go through this.
Right, exactly. So thank you for being one of the leaders in
Well, thank you for giving me a platform.
that. Aw.